in the fringe of playoff contention. Packers, meanwhile, 8-3, somehow sitting in third place in the NFC North because of the seasons that Detroit and Minnesota are having. Still, if the playoffs started today, the Packers would be the number 6 seed. Again, Packers and Dolphins Thursday night. Kick is set for 7:20. Turning to the Badgers, they're getting ready for their season finale against Minnesota coming up on Friday morning. Badgers need a win to become bowl eligible, something they've been every year since 2002. But while that streak is important, Coach Luke Fickell says it's Albany and Zax that truly matters.
I know this, that when we start at the beginning of the season, we talk about rivalries. We talk about the battle for the axe. We talk about the history of the game more than we talk about different types of streaks and things like that. I'm not downplaying it. I'm not saying it's not incredibly important. I'm not saying it's another thing that's on our plate. But when it gets down to this last week, it's about the rivalry. It's about preparing to play it in the most important game of the year.
Again, it'll be Wisconsin and Minnesota on Friday morning kick at 11 a.m.
When I joined Better Life, I thought it was just about life insurance, but it's so much more. Better Life connects me with others in my community through social groups, events, and wellness programs. Insurance helps give me peace of mind, but benefits, they give me a real sense of belonging.
Better Life Insurance. Better means belonging. Call 888-488-4136. Insurance issued by Better Life Insurance Company. Terms and conditions apply. Member benefits are subject to change. Contact a licensed agent for details.
Well, Wisconsin is moving up in the latest AP Top 25. Fresh off winning the Greenbrier tip-off, the Badgers jumped 4 spots in the latest poll to number 15. Wisconsin 7-0 for just the 6th time in the last 95 years. Going to face winless Chicago State on Saturday. Bucks going to be in Miami tomorrow. With this Wisconsin Sports Zone Network update, I'm Zach Heil, Print.
Man, so you've been through plenty of Thursday night games already as a head coach, but do you stay here all night? Do you go
pretty much? Yeah. That's why I want to get done with this as soon as possible.
The fact that they knocked us out and the last time we played them, we lost. So we knew it was going to be a 4-quarter fight. It feels good to be able to go out there and have a win like this. So, we're going to move past it now, but it definitely feels good.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
Normally, I kind of roll my eyes when coaches act all dramatic in press conferences, football coaches, right? Because I think about, imagine being an NBA coach, 82 games, you're on the road 40-some nights a year. Baseball managers, 162-game season, you're on the road 80-some nights a year. You're talking to the media 3 times a day, answering the same questions about reliever usage. When most managers in baseball are like, dude, it doesn't matter. We're not going anywhere. Our owner's cheap. We're not. You want to know why I threw Zach Smith instead of Burt Allen? Really, I got to tell you again for the 2nd time today and for the 4th time this week. A lot of times I bristle when football coaches are angsty in press conferences. It's you play 17 games, you meet with the media 3 times a week. Let's calm down. It would be rough to finish a game and to do a press conference at 7 o'clock on a Sunday night and be like, hey, Thursday, you got to play a game Thursday. You got to get all your work in for the week by Thursday. Now, at least the Packers are at home. But I am sympathetic to football coaches when they're like, I got to go. Can we wrap up this press conference? I got a game on Thursday. This work week for us is great, unless you're a healthcare professional or what was the phrase that we came up with? Unless you're an essential worker, you probably don't work on Thursday, maybe not on Friday. I will not be working on Thursday or Friday. Imagine this week, but instead of being done with your work week on Thursday, it's actually, it's all leading up to Thursday and you need to get ready by Thursday. It would stink. So best of luck to Matt LaFleur in the Packers. I'm sure he was up late last night trying to get a game plan together. This is the Wisco Sports Show. My name is Grant Bills. I love coming to work on Mondays, kind of. The weekend being done stinks, but this time of year, doing a Monday show, it's so easy. We have so much to talk about. We could spend the full 2 hours talking about the Packer game. Of course, we could mix in some commentary about Badgers football or Badgers basketball. We could talk about any other of the, countless NFL games that went on yesterday. They're all so meaningful. We have so few of them. So Mondays are easy. And this week, I only got to work through Wednesday afternoon. This feels like a freebie, right? Is it the vibe in your office this morning when everyone showed up? Isn't it just easy? It's yeah, we're here, but this week doesn't really count. If you want to join the show tonight, I'll take your calls. Mondays are always lively after a Packer game, and I'll try to get to as many calls as possible. 608-321-1670, and you can watch and listen to the show and comment, YouTube, Facebook, show streams on Twitter as well, Wisco Grant. No guests tonight. We're just going to react to what we watched over the weekend. So let's start with the Packer game. I imagine that we'll spend probably most of the 2 hours, except for when Cone Roller calls in and wants to talk about the Greenbrier tip-off, of which the Badgers came back and won yesterday. Very fun game, although it started late and the broadcast was kind of a cluster. I kind of like when they play in random locations, but you see the other half of that. It's like, oh, we need someone to yell out the shot clock. Okay, that's what November in college basketball is all about. But let's start with the Packers. It was a good game. It was a fun game. It felt like even when the Packers ran bad offensive plays, they would still go for 4 or 5 yards. It was fun. It was an enjoyable game to watch. They won an NFL game by 28 points. And it feels a little ridiculous. Be like, well, that wasn't good enough. Well, they should have won by more. They should have won by even more. Like, there does reach a point in sports when you blow another team out. I don't think it's really fair to say, well, they should have won by even more. I was going back and forth with a Badger analytics account on Friday night because the Badgers pulled up a little bit in the second half and didn't continue to completely dominate the way that they were. And this account was saying, well, they should have won by 30. It's like, come on, get real. A 28-point win, a 20-point win in basketball. Human nature becomes a thing. When a team takes a big lead, they relax a little bit, right? It's human nature. 28-point win is excellent. Now, I'm left wanting a little bit, as I have been in a lot of Packers wins this year. And I guess that's a good problem to have for your team to be 8-3 and to still come away with things where it's like, well, that could get a little bit better. I'd like to see that improve a little bit. I'd like to feel a little bit better about X, Y, Z, or this, that, and the other thing. And I am left wanting, and I think we're going to have those discussions. But let's talk about the positive. Let's start completely positive. Short work week, really fun win, 28 points, smoke the Niners, screw the Niners, hate that team, stupid team, hate them more than the Cowboys, and you should too, but some of you were stuck in the 90s, which is fine. I guess the 90s were a great decade. Many people long for the 90s. Let's talk about the positives. Josh Jacobs, he's freaking sweet, man. It's so fun that he's on our team. Like, to just be a completely biased fan. It's just sick that we have him on our team. He's a bona fide star. And I don't need to explain to you how dominant he was. I don't need to give you statistics. I saw a lot of tweets yesterday. He's the first running back to do blah, 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 blah since Amon Green. It's like he is through this first portion of the season, and we're a little bit past halfway. So through the first portion of the season, and it's not a small sample, he is doing things that we've seen very few Packers running backs do, certainly in my lifetime, right? So I don't need to bang you over the head with Josh Jacobs' statistics. We watched the game. He was great, and he's been great this year. But to build off of our Thursday conversation when I was at Bill's house on Thursday at his studio, that's their identity. Their identity is Josh Jacobs being the tip of the spear for Matt LaFleur's running game. And it's a heck of a running game. And I believe I played a Dan Orlovsky cut from him on ESPN last week, breaking down certain plays, and he used the phrase, it's a diabolical run game. That's how he described Matt LaFleur. Some of the concepts and things that he drew up and has been drawing up, they're just sick. There were some spin like concepts where LaFleur's got Love going one way, then the other, then the running back cuts back, and you're just watching Devondre Campbell and Fred Warner guess right, go left, and then the play comes right. Like, just the misdirection, and then combine that, of course, with the power and the slippery. Like, he's powerful, but he's also slippery. Like, it's just an awesome combination, and it's that combination of his skills, Josh Jacobs' skills, and Matt LaFleur's scheme that's the identity of this team and an identity of this offense. And it's not just Josh Jacobs breaking tackles. It's the lanes created by the offensive line as well. They were excellent yesterday. And, traditionally over the last 10 or 15 years, this era of Packers football, the O-line's been a lot more about pass blocking. And this O-line, their bread and butter is still pass blocking. But I think this year, Josh Myers was awesome yesterday. Sean Ryan is more of a road grader type than they've typically had. Like, just a really good all-around game on the lines of scrimmage. And that's not necessarily something that shows up in the final score or in the box score, but both lines of scrimmage deserve a lot of credit. The offense, I think, especially, Jordan Love was sacked twice. The first, he ran directly into it. Like, that was not the fault of the offensive line. He had a good pocket, and I don't remember the second one, so I'll have to go check the All-22 whenever that's out, and I can go find the second sack. Now, so offense, the run game, the lines of scrimmage, Josh Jacobs, the defense, which I think we're probably going to spend some good time on tonight. Whatever Jeff Hafley cooked up to stop the run yesterday worked really well. Christian McCaffrey had 31 yards on 11 carries. And I know Christian McCaffrey's having a a year disrupted by injuries, and he's probably not 100%. But Kyle Shanahan is brilliant and has schemed up runs against the Packers that are disgusting over the years. You're like, how are they? They're just getting 5, 6, 7 yards a carry easily. And look at what Sean McVay was able to do with Kyron Williams earlier this year. Like, you just get a good offensive scheme and a capable running back, and even a lesser version of McCaffrey, I'd say, is still plenty capable. I mean, they shut down the running game yesterday completely. And I know George Kittle had some moments, and people were upset about that, and Brandon Allen made a couple throws. How do you let a backup drive the field on you? They sustained one drive before halftime. That was really the one drive that they sustained. And the Niners' only path, a very narrow path to victory yesterday and to pulling off an upset, was to run the ball and to shorten the game, kind of like the Bears did. And the Bears didn't just do it by running the ball, although they ran the ball effectively last week, just possessing the ball, putting together long drives. And because the Niners were without their left tackle and some of their star wide receivers, and they're playing a backup, the only way that they were going to possess the ball and shorten this game was to run the ball. And Hafley just kind of snuffed that out. He's like, well, we're not letting you run the ball. You might hit some throws to Kittle and Debo. Those are good players. And Kyle Shanahan's a good coach. He's going to even get Brandon Allen in a spot or two to make some throws. And they did. But I think Hafley came into this game thinking, well, we're not going to let him run the ball. And that's going to keep this game in a very, very winnable state for us. I think that's exactly right. And George Kittle, I played this cut earlier when Mike Clemens sent it into Bill's show. I think George Kittle said exactly that after the game. It's like the only way we were going to win this was to run the ball and possess the ball, and we just couldn't do it. The Packers, on the other hand, had the ball forever, especially in the first half. They just kept the Niners off the field.
It felt like they were on the field the entire first and part of the second quarter. So time possession was tough. I feel like it's something that I try to emphasize every single week. Like, hey, what are your goals of victory? Hold on to the ball, run the ball a ton, don't turn the ball over. And I don't think we did any of those three things tonight. That's why we lost like that.
They did none of those three things. And the Niners, even more so last night than in most games, had to possess the ball because they just weren't going to score 35 points. Now they could score maybe 21, 24, but the game would have to be shortened and constricted. And the only way the Niners are going to be able to do that was to run the ball. Now you might not be happy with the way that the Packers maybe neglected George Kittle on a play or two, or their lack of a pass rush. It would seem to me that Jeff Hafley's plan coming into this game was, we're just not going to let him run. And we feel okay about the rest of it. It's like the rest of it's going to work out for us. And it did. And, they had one drive that was kind of frustrating, but it's the NFL. And Kyle Shanahan's an excellent coach, and Kittle's great, and Debo's still good. I don't think he is what he was. But the Niners, they put together one drive. That's it. I think Hafley and that defense snuffing out the run game made the rest of the game basically impossible outside of that one drive. And also, lastly, while we're shouting out the positives, shout out to the players who are often recipients of hate on the internet, on Facebook and Twitter from Packers fans. Quay Walker, Lucas Van Ness, Keyshawn Nixon. Heck, I think even Josh Myers to the eye test was really, really solid yesterday. He's playing good football. And not like in the past when Brian Gutekunst and Matt LaFleur have said, well, he's playing great football. And we're like, are you sure? I actually think he's playing really good football right now. Did the Packers end up paying him a big contract and keeping around? I doubt it. But this version of Josh Myers is pretty darn solid. And I'm not telling you that the criticism of Quay Walker, Lucas Van Ness, Keyshawn Nixon, I'm not saying, oh, dumb fans hate on those guys. No, those players have been bad. Some more than others. I think Quay the last couple of weeks has just been awful. And Lucas Van Ness has been a no-show. And Keyshawn Nixon has had some bad moments. But those players all were pretty good yesterday. And the Pro Football Focus grades bear that out. I thought Quay Walker looked great. He looked very, very solid. And the grading and some of the stats that came out today kind of reflected that. I don't think Quay Walker's going to be Fred Warner. And he's ever going to be this unbelievable, awesome linebacker. But he's better than we've seen the last couple of weeks. He knows that. The Packers know that. He just needed to clear his mentals a little bit. He was double taking and double guessing and just in his brain about where, like, who am I supposed to hit and where? And he just seemed to be freer yesterday. Now he dropped the pick. Now, if he's going to drop picks, I'd rather he drop a pick yesterday than in the first playoff game. Like, I'd rather have him catch the meaningful ones in close games against elite teams or in the playoffs. But I thought Quay was good yesterday, and it was nice to see Lucas Van Ness make a play that strip sack. I'm not going to tell you that he dominated and had some coming out party. He only played 18 snaps, which was jarring to read when I went to go look at the totals today. He only played 36% of the defensive plays. And it was just the one play. That was one, I believe he had one tackle, and it was the strip sack where he just ragdolled Christian McCaffrey out of the way and basically just jarred the ball loose with his head. It's not like he even intently punched the ball out. He just bull in a china shop and it worked out. That was the one play that he made, but optimism, that is the type of play that could maybe spark a guy. Maybe that could get him going a little bit. The ability is there. The physical traits are there. It just kind of been waiting him to take a step and to put some things together. And maybe that's the type of play that does it. Nixon is far from perfect, but they're asking him to play out of position, be a number one outside corner. Like, can we really expect him to be, Jair Alexander or Darrell Revis or no. I think he's mostly been fine. The problem with their corners is that Jair can't stay healthy, and Goody was content coming into the season with Valentine, Ballantyne, and Stokes. I can't believe Stokes is still playing. I can't believe they're still trying to, get blood from that stone, but that's a whole separate thing. Look, there were a lot of positives from yesterday's game. First and foremost, they won by 28. It's hard to do better than that, right? I thought the defensive strategy of completely shutting down the run was great, and that's a lot harder to do than it seems. Well, just shut down the run. Okay, well, easier said than done. That's Kyle Shanahan and Christian McCaffrey. They did a great job, and there were some great moments from players who have really struggled at times this year. Okay, all of that. Lots of positives to take away from this game. But I'm still left wanting a little bit. I don't think Jordan Love played great. I thought he was fine. And before you call or text or comment on the show, well, if Watson just catches that deep ball, I know. I'm not a child. I can assign credit to Jordan Love for that throw without it being caught before someone jumps onto their phone or jumps onto the keyboard to be like, well, if Christian Watson would have caught the ball, I know. Even with that throw, I thought Love was fine. And I guess it's a good thing to win a game by 28 with your quarterback just playing fine. The problem is at some point, I want to see him play great. And there's plenty of season left. But I don't know that we've really seen Jordan Love look great yet this year. It rarely seems easy for this offense. It seemed easy on their first drive against the Bears last weekend. And then that was kind of the last time that it looked easy. They moved the ball yesterday, but it never looked like they were gliding. It never looked like they were coasting. It never looked like, oh, God. Jordan Love went from the 8:33 mark in the second quarter to the 1:35 mark of the third quarter without a completion. And that completion in the third quarter was the check down, I believe, to Chris Brooks on 3rd and 25 that netted like 16 yards. Like it was a dump off to a wide open running back. That's tough. You can't do that in a huge game against a contender. You can't do that in the playoffs. So I think the Packers played very well, and I enjoyed it. Here's the thing, though, and then we can take a break and get to some of your thoughts. I'm still waiting to see if the Packers can rise to the level of Detroit or Philly or maybe Minnesota. Maybe they deserve to be in that group too. I haven't seen it yet. I haven't seen a moment where it's like, there it is. There's a team that could pull off an upset over Detroit or Philly in the postseason. They've looked like, for most of the year, the 4th best team in the NFC. And that's not a bad spot to be in. It's just we came into this year with Super Bowl expectations, and I need to see a little bit more before I start dreaming about a team that can get hot and knock off great teams and win multiple playoff games in a row. That's it. We didn't see it yesterday. Doesn't mean we won't see it down the stretch, but I'm still waiting to see it. Didn't see it yesterday. Thought we might and didn't. 608-321-1670 to your thoughts next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
They've obviously produced on the field, but I think just some of the stuff that you guys don't get the opportunity to see, how they lead behind the scenes, has been pretty impressive, because I think it's not only about all the talk, it's about the action, and those guys back up what they say.
It's Matt LaFleur after the game last night talking about Xavier McKinney and Josh Jacobs, who were probably the two most important players on the field for the Packers yesterday. And I was listening to Packers OT, a little bit of post-game action. I went to the store after the Packer game, and I was listening while I was shopping, and then I drove home, and it's hosted by Drew Olson and Billy Schmid. And Drew Olson mentioned more than once in the on and off hour that I was listening. He's like, well, the Packers, not a team that known for free agency. In this era, I think they've become a team that's pretty active in free agency. In 2019, they got Zadarius Smith, Preston Smith, and Adrian Amos. All of those guys made huge impact right away. Were three of the more important players in that little window of contention. And then they spent big money. It's not like Josh Jacobs and Xavier McKinney were thrifty ads. Those were top shelf, top of their position ads who have played huge roles. So look, the Packers aren't signing half a dozen free agents every year, but this ain't Ted Thompson's Packers anymore. And the players that have been added in free agency are top dollar, and you saw it again yesterday, contributing at a really high level. Let's whip through some phone calls. We got loaded phone lines reacting to the Packers. And if you have a Badgers thought too, it's fine. Let's be efficient. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
It's Thomas in La Crosse.
What's going on, Thomas?
Oh, not too much. Just heading on to a workout here quick, and thought I'd give a few Packer thoughts. Yes, sir.
Yeah, what do you think?
Before I head there. So first off, you are absolutely right. Jordan Love definitely had a good game, but not a great game, obviously. So obviously, can definitely improve there in that aspect. But I'm talking with all my friends about this. I am super glad that we got out and went for Josh Jacobs and Xavier McKinney. I think those two free agent signings are arguably the best that I've seen in terms of really shining through this season, especially Xavier McKinney. That son of a gun has 7 interceptions already now, and looks really, really good overall. So I'm excited to see what the Packers can do next week. And overall, really impressed with the game. And I'll keep it short and sweet for you, Grant. Go Pack, go Eagles too. Big game.
They're gonna smoke St. John's on Saturday. Sorry to spoil. That's not a prediction. That's a spoiler. I thought Jordan Love was fine, and I think we still have yet to see him play his best football. Maybe we don't see it. Maybe this is it, right? But I've seen him play at a higher level. We saw it for almost 2 months last year. Still kind of waiting on that. And I think maybe as the offensive line kind of solidifies, they've been tighter. I think Jordan Love and his receivers are going to continue to get tighter as he's healthy and practicing and going week by week by week, full bore and not missing time and not being in and out. Without Josh Jacobs and Xavier McKinney, I don't know. They don't have 8 wins. I'm not going to be so bold to say they'd have 3. But they would not be 8-3 without those 2 offseason additions. Those weren't luxury ads. Those are significant pillars that have directly led to wins this year. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Mr. Built. It is
Hector.
Hector in Onalaska.
What's going on?
Oh, I'm just feeding the whole family before I go to the Quick Trip end of year meeting.
Good for you. Record profits, I imagine, for Quick Trip.
Oh. Always record. It's hard to not beat records when they're forcing production into overtime. Well, actually, never mind.
What?
when you wonderful customers just continue to buy our beautiful products, we can't help but shatter records.
We need more and more and more. Yeah, you're printing money over at Quick Trip these days. Good for you.
Oh yeah. So yeah, I got a highly anticipated game coming up tonight. You know, the Harbaugh going at it again. We of course know what happened the first time they did with my Baltimore Ravens, but
yeah,
it was fun to watch them do well on both sides of the ball. The Packers this past game, and it'll be interesting now that they have made it a point to run Josh Jacobs. I think it'll happen more. I think it'll help relieve some of the extra pressure that's every time Christian Watson misses a drop, you get those texts and calls and everything. Like, other receivers drop things all the time. It's not Larry Fitzgerald out there catching balls 100%. So
yeah, and
I think
Dobbs bricked
it'll
one
be a big
yesterday
help.
too. Yeah, Josh Jacobs would be a big help.
Well, Dobbs got slammed to the ground, and it caused, a concussion. A concussion caused him to drop the ball.
Yeah, it's separate plays. We're talking about two separate plays. Thank you, Hector. That's a good call. They're a team. I didn't expect for them to be in the spot. They kind of need 25 carries a game from Josh Jacobs. And maybe if Marshawn Lloyd comes back and is able to contribute, there's a world in which they, I've never seen Matt LaFleur ride a running back like this, except for Aaron Jones down the stretch last year. He's never gone all in on a bell cow like this. He didn't even do it with Derrick Henry in Tennessee, right? Which in hindsight was dumb. Should have done it in Tennessee. They need 26, 25 carries a game from him right now, because if he asks Jordan Love to throw the ball 40 times, he's throwing picks. Right? That's why we talked last Thursday. What's their identity? Their identity is this running game led by Matt LaFleur's scheme and Josh Jacobs. And they're asking Jordan Love to fill in the gaps. The last couple weeks, the gaps haven't been too big, right? Because Josh Jacobs in that running game has been so potent and effective. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this? Who's next?
Hey, Grant.
Hey,
Go
Cone.
Pack.
Go Pack. What's up, Cone?
I agree. I think, this game kind of solidified that this is a defense first, running game first team. And honestly, a little controversial, but my take after this game is Brock Purdy is a heck of a lot more important to the Niners' success than Jordan Love is to the Packers' success.
Yeah. Well, and I wonder, and this is, I tweeted after the game last night. I said the Packers just won a game by 28 points, and I'm not sure that Jordan Love played all that great. And that's not really me taking a dump on Jordan Love. That's a testament to the rest of this roster and the coaching staff. Like, they have built a really well-rounded team, and there's still some weaknesses, I think, on the roster, especially on defense. On offense, I just think it's age and inexperience that might bite them. But this is a team that doesn't really need Jordan Love to do all that much to win. And this version of the Niners, to your point, Cone, especially with all their injuries, they kind of need a quarterback that can sling it a little bit, especially with McCaffrey all banged up. They can't really ride him like they need to, especially with a backup in there.
Yeah, and if Purdy was this plug-and-play guy that we've been told he is, like, why didn't they look good yesterday? I mean, clearly Brock Purdy is talented. He deserves a long-term contract with the Niners. And if this is an arbitration kind of court style, he should take that game tape to the table and ask for more money.
Yeah. That's a good point. And I wonder what they would have looked like with Brock Purdy yesterday, because it's just astounding. They're without Ayuk. They're without Bosa. They're without Trent Williams, who's like their one good offensive lineman. The Niners they don't care about a line. They're going to draft the skill position players instead, or pay the skill position players instead, which is fine. But then when you're lacking those guys, like the Niners are the Milwaukee Bucks of the NFL, and they're having a season from hell where every old expensive player is just hurt and not producing. And I don't know if it would have looked that different with Brock Purdy in there yesterday, but it couldn't have looked much worse.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know if you want to get into Badger basketball, but what a weekend. What a team. Kamari McGee, I know Tanji got MVP, but really of this team so far, Kamari McGee is the glue guy. The Badgers go as he goes. And he's hitting over 50% of his threes this year, which I don't expect to continue. But anytime he catches a corner three, you're expecting that to go in right now. It was a fun weekend of Badger basketball. Greg Gard got these guys playing hard. Tanji says it feels like he's been in the building for 4 to 5 years. I mean, just goes to show what kind of team that Greg Gard has built. And you see it in the way the players are playing. They play as Greg Gard coaches.
Yeah, and they play like they've been together for years. And I think this is, Cone, that's a great call. This is, and there's one more caller on hold, so hang out there. Don't drop. I'll get to you in just a sec. But to follow up on what Cone said about Badger basketball, and we can get back to the Packers. What's cool about this Badgers team so far, and I tweeted about this morning, it kind of came across as sarcastic, but I didn't mean it as sarcasm. This is an era of transience and pay for play in college basketball. Guys are going anywhere they want at any time they want, and they're getting paid. And that's not really how college basketball's felt for a long time. That's not the appeal of the sport, right? The appeal is these guys become pillars of these programs, and they're around for a while, and they develop, and it feels different than an NBA team would. Guys aren't moving around. There's a familiar feel. And there's transfers coming in and out of Wisconsin, and there's certainly money being thrown around. Players are being paid, right? But it still kind of has an old school feel. Brandon Harrison tweeted this out. He does brand comm for UW. It means everything to me. He was asked about playing for Wisconsin. It means everything to me. I want this place. I want this to be the place I come back to and visit after I'm done playing college. I want this to be my home after. It's John Tonje. Like, the fact that you can get that from players and you can get kind of the feel that Cone was talking about from a college team in 2024, that's pretty cool. And I'm glad. That makes me like this product a lot more. Because, at times, especially college basketball, college football, it's like, okay, so all these players that are developing and they're trying to build something, and then half of them leave. And now we're expected to cut a check to bring in 18-year-olds and I don't know if they're ever actually going to play. God knows if they'll actually play well and be worth that money. The fact that we can still get that feel from Badger basketball a little bit. And look, I don't like Marquette, but Marquette's getting it too. Like, those guys aren't coming and going. They're building something there too. And I'll give credit to Marquette for that too, even though it pains me. Like, we got, no matter which program you cheer for in this state, we're getting an old school college basketball feel and sense of reward from. And that's pretty cool in 2024, at least. 608-321-1670. One more call before our break. Let's go Sports Show. Who's this?
Breaking news out of the Wisconsin Badger basketball program.
You commented this, and I thought it was like something, and now I see you've tweeted about it, and you can tell us what it is. But I panicked, or I didn't know what you were referring to. So go ahead and tell us.
Greg Gard and the Wisconsin Badgers, your 2024 picked 12th to finish in the Big Ten 24 basketball team, holds the longest winning streak in all of Division I college hoops. How about that, Grant?
Well, and what? They have a Chicago school this week, and it's a quiet week. There's a chance that Marquette and Wisconsin could still both be undefeated a week from Saturday.
Also, credit where credit's due, that Marquette home schedule next week is insane. They have Texas, Wisconsin, and there's one other big game. I can't remember it off the top of my head right now. But I was looking at that, and I was looking at tickets, thinking about going, and did a little cross analysis, right? The cheapest ticket to get into Wisconsin Marquette is like $160 next week. What do you think, higher or lower, Gophers versus Badgers at Camp Randall this Friday?
Lower. It'll be a pricier ticket to go see Marquette at Fiserv, or especially Wisconsin Marquette, than it will be to go see Badgers Gophers. You kidding me?
You can bring your family of 6 to the Wisconsin Badgers versus the Minnesota Golden Gophers on Black Friday, and still pay less than a single ticket to Marquette, Wisconsin. So
I might try to
Dave
go.
Manona's got a lot of stock in that.
I'll look at ticket prices. Funds are squeezed as we get closer to Christmas here. I can't be blowing money on, but Wisconsin Marquette, 12:30 p.m. on the 7th. I might try to go to that. I do have an appointment to go to the post office that day, so it's already filling up quickly, but I might try to go. Do you have a Packers thought, or do you have a Wisconsin football thought before we wrap up?
Well, before we do that, be careful with your wallet before you go to the post office. We don't want any more of that going on.
Yeah.
I think just to wrap up the conversation you were just having, and I think this is true in all sports, so getting a little bit meta with it, it doesn't take long for players to make an impact on a program, on a fan base, on a school. Obviously, we are beloved to Russell Wilson. Dude is only here for a year, right? Mm-hmm. We're beloved to players, and it's more about those moments and having those special just time, whether it's beating a rival with Braylon Allen that last game. Obviously, he was here for a couple of years, but there are moments that are big for specific players, and it doesn't take long to make an impact. And I think this Badger basketball team is going to make a hell of an impact throughout this entire winter and into the spring. So excited for the ride. Cherish it while we have it. He's a senior. Dave, no, he's not going to be searching for a bag from another school. Just enjoy it when we got it, because this is freaking awesome.
He can't. He won't be able to. I believe he'll be out of eligibility. He's a senior, to your point. Yeah, and look, players don't take long to make an impact. I think that's a good take. We're seeing it with the Packers, and I like Vagabond John, you're a pro. You kind of tied that all together with Xavier McKinney, Josh Jacobs. We're seeing it with John Tanjay and some of the other additions that Greg Gard has brought in. This is why I don't know. I don't want to say that I'm just cut and dry out on Luke Fickell because I'm not. I think he's a good coach. Not that we've seen it the last 2 years. I still have some sense of belief that he'll turn this football team into a better product, but like it's really tough for me to be like, well, they got Carter Smith. I'm like, okay, well, when will he be here? Okay, so he'll be here in what, January, February, or whatever, early enrollment. Probably won't play. Is he going to play next year? Probably not. It's like, okay, so 2 years down the road. Meanwhile, I'm watching my team give up 44 to Nebraska. If they give it up 44, Zach mentioned on the camp, 24 points was good enough to beat Nebraska in like 8 of their last 9 or 7 of their last 8 matchups. Like the future is bright. Nah, I have a really hard time believing that when they're giving up 320 on the ground to Iowa and they're giving 41 up to Nebraska. And for those of you who aren't like college football diehards, and I'm not, I've watched a little bit more closely this year. It's like, well, they have Dylan Roy. Yeah, he's sucked. He's like 8 picks and 2 touchdowns in his last couple games. Like that hasn't been a good offense. And throw that game, another game on the embarrassment pile for Luke Fickell. Without, by my estimation, 1 signature win. I don't count Minnesota last year. That was, all right, Braylon Allen's probably the best player in this game. We're just going to hand it to him, and he's going to take us home. They don't have 1 signature win. We have like 4 or 5, 3 or 4, I guess 4, I would guess. And I'll go back and look at the schedule. We have 4 embarrassments. Since Luke Fickell has taken over, he has coached his team to 4 performances that have been equal or worse to the game that got Paul Chris fired. So, yeah, I'll remain as optimistic as possible because he's not going anywhere. He's getting paid too much money, and there are flashy names coming in. That's nice. But, like, oh, they got a 4-star quarterback. Well, they just gave up 44 to Iowa, who mostly stinks, or 44 to Nebraska, who mostly stinks. So, sorry if I'm not pom-pom waving. It's difficult for me. I watch the games on Saturday. I'm a dinosaur. I want to see my team win. I don't really care about recruiting numbers. 608-321-1670. More of your thoughts, and I have some Packer points. I want to talk about the sequence going into halftime when we come back.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Here's Love, Watson going deep, has Watson, he missed it, he dropped it. Oh, it was in his hands for 6.
I mean, just about execution. I mean, obviously, in the past we've struggled with just executing when we need to in certain situations, and negative plays as well. I think we're just better in that area, and we're able to make the most of it.
What happened on the pass from Love down the left sideline?
I just dropped it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I just didn't know if there was something if you didn't see it or whatnot. But
Yeah. No, it just one of those ones, and just dropped it.
It was just one of those ones. That sucked. If Christian Watson is going to drop a touchdown like that, same with Quay Walker's dropped interception, I would rather it happen in a regular season game that was never really in doubt. I know that drop was a kick in the store, and everyone's like, oh my God, they're going to blow this. And I asked Bill earlier today, because him and Clemens are obviously in the press box. I'm like, what did that do to the energy in the building? What did that do to the energy at Lambeau? He's like, oh yeah, it sucked it sucked the air right out of it. A drop like that is more than just, a drop on the spreadsheet. And I've been singing the praises of Christian Watson the last couple weeks. Like, hey, everyone says that he stinks and that he can't catch the ball. It's like, well, he's got fewer drops than Dobbs. He's got fewer drops than everybody else on the team, right? Drops have been a problem this year. Not really with Christian Watson. You can't really defend that one as much as I like him. And I think he does a lot of things right, and he's got all the talent, and he's productive. That one sucked. Now, I think the most harmful part of that drop is it threw Jordan Love for a loop, and then Matt LaFleur wasn't able to respond. And I want to talk about that sequence going into halftime for just a minute here, and there's a caller on hold, and I'll get to you in just a second. 608-321-1670, some empty phone lines if you want to grab them. You could text and comment as well. Christian Watson dropped a pass. I mean, that sucks. There's not really much you can do about it. Jordan Love threw an awesome ball. He gets all the credit for that. Matt LaFleur dialed up a great player to get him open. He gets all the credit for that. What happened on the next 2 plays worries me a lot more. I don't necessarily watch that Christian Watson drop and think, oh, but what if he does that in the playoffs? Because any player could drop a pass. It's just difficult to think, well, what if they drop one in the postseason? Anybody could drop anything at any time. James Jones in 2010 had a drops problem. Jordy Nelson had a drops problem. It happens. It feels really fluky. I know Christian Watson dropped a ball in Minnesota in 2022. Okay, that was it was 2 years ago. That was a long time ago now. But they're very, they stick in our mind. Those 2 plays are very jarring. We don't forget about them. What happened on the next 2 plays after that drop worries me a lot more going into a stretch run against Minnesota or Detroit with important games or, potential playoff games. So Jordan Love, I'm going to read you the sequence going into halftime. They had a 5-play drive. Started with 1 minute and 2 seconds on San Francisco's 30, or Green Bay's 30. They are 70 yards away from the end zone they are trying to reach. 1 minute and 2 seconds, and there are 2 timeouts. Packers have 2 timeouts, okay? This is how the drive went. Josh Jacobs, 8-yard run. No huddle. Josh Jacobs up the middle, 13-yard run. So at this point, there's 44 seconds left. The Packers take the snap with 36 seconds left. They are, what yard line? They're at the 49. They're midfield. They're midfield with 44 seconds left and 2 timeouts. Jordan Love uncorks a perfect ball right to Christian Watson. He drops it. Okay, gut punch. That sucks. There are 30 seconds left. They are 15 yards away from field goal range. They're probably 10 yards away from giving it an honest to goodness shot. 15 yards away from feeling great about it. That's easy. They're 15 yards away from a very solid field goal attempt going into halftime. They have 2 timeouts. They have 2. Jordan Love follows up that incomplete pass to Christian Watson, throwing a ball into double coverage towards Bo Melton. It wasn't the worst throw in the world, but it's like probably not necessary. And then after that, he makes matters worse. He uncorks probably his worst ball, second worst ball of the day up there, to Christian Watson going deep again. It's like, hold on. How did we get from 2nd and 10 at midfield with 2 timeouts and a field goal kicker who already banged a 50-plus yarder to 4th and 10, 23 seconds left, and still having 2 timeouts? And Jordan Love drove me nuts in that sequence. I will let that sequence fall at the feet of Matt LaFleur, because Matt LaFleur has to realize in that moment, I got to go get my quarterback. Okay. He missed a deep shot, or the deep shot to Watson was dropped. And on the next play, he's running around. He's slinging the ball. Hold on. Matt LaFleur needs to realize in that moment, my quarterback gets a little deep pass happy, gets a little big throw happy, gets a little big game hunting happy. I need to get in his ear and say, hey, Watson dropped that pass, man. That sucks. And we're probably not getting those points back. But we are in prime position to run this clock down into halftime and to get a field goal attempt with a kicker who already, he already made a 50-plus yarder. And Matt LaFleur stood idly by and let Jordan Love completely lose his mind on 2 deep passes that weren't, like, even if those balls are caught, they're still probably not scoring a touchdown. Their chance to score a touchdown probably died with that Christian Watson throw. Now, if you throw a ball over the middle or to the boundary and you make a great play and the situation changes, big yards after the catch or something, okay, fine. But after Watson drops that pass, Matt LaFleur and Jordan Love need to be together and realize, all right, we got 35 seconds left and 2 timeouts. Field goal is in the hand here. We're on the green. We just need to tap this thing in. The way we've been moving the ball, not a problem. And Matt LaFleur allowed Jordan Love to kind of lose his mind. And if that happens in a playoff game, that kills you. That's 3 points you should have in a playoff game. And how many playoff games in Packers history have we come away from a loss saying, man, that sequence before halftime killed him? Offense or defense. Like Kevin King before halftime. Oh, that sequence killed him. You can't leave good opportunities with multiple timeouts. Everyone loves to bitch about how Matt LaFleur uses timeouts. They had 2 timeouts and 35 seconds. They're at midfield. They need 12 yards for a very, very honest to goodness Brandon McManus field goal attempt. And Matt LaFleur didn't realize what his quarterback was about to do, which was kind of play like a child, which Jordan Love has a problem with, right? Holmgren had to rein in Favre. Matt LaFleur is going to have to realize he needs to notice those things and say, okay, I need to go get my guy. And if that means taking a timeout, then so be it. Because that's better than completely wasting 2 plays, risking a turnover, and completely tossing a chance at a field goal before halftime in a garbage. It didn't hurt him yesterday. That kills you in a playoff game. That kills you in a game at US Bank or at Ford Field. That kills you. That cannot happen again. I think that was the most damning sequence of a game yesterday that otherwise they played very well in. There were very few dark spots. There were very few bad spots. That was one of them. And the thought of that happening in a playoff game or at US Bank or in Ford Field in a couple weeks, that scares the hell out of me. 608-321-1670. Thank you for listening. I wanted to get that off my chest. Thank you for waiting. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Denny from Holman.
Denny from Holman. Good evening, Denny.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Oh, yeah,
you hit the nail right on the head.
Good, Denny.
You got to rein him in.
Yes.
What did I tell you last week were the keys that I felt, amongst our kickoff team looked atrocious. Our coverage team, we're just lucky that they didn't get that touchdown.
We're lucky that
holding
got
call.
called a hold, which, by the way, if the NFL wants to make kickoffs a thing, forget about this dynamic kickoff. Tell your referees to stop flag hunting on every return. It's like every other return in every NFL game I watch. They all come back. Why would teams run them out? Because the refs, they'll throw a flag at every little thing, and the Packers got lucky on that.
You know what amazed me the most is San Francisco's inability to control themselves with the penalties that they had. I mean, that's not like a well-coached team that would do that.
They're sloppy.
I just couldn't believe it.
They're sloppy. Their
Very
special teams are awful. Their special teams are akin to what the Packers had in 21. Some of the 12-man on the field stuff, Denny, when you're missing what felt like so many of their starters, I get it because they're probably playing guys in spots and in packages they would normally be in. But yeah, it was especially to get it on back-to-back plays.
And Love threw to 10 guys, okay? They might not have caught all the balls. But you got, like you said, you got to rein them in because those 3 points, I mean, when McManus made that first 51, did you see it was going to the right? And then all of a sudden, it just comes right back in.
It's very
We're
close.
so used to seeing it go wide right,
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that running, I thought our defense, they're kind of bend and break, I mean, because here we are, and McCaffrey's a well-known runner. I know he's a little bit injured, like you said, a little bit necked up and stuff, but we still stopped them.
Yep.
And then to see our running backs run as hard as they did, he had 70 yards in the first quarter.
Yeah, it was a punking on both lines of scrimmage. They couldn't sniff Jordan Love. Thank you, Denny. We'll talk more throughout the week. I know they couldn't sniff Jordan Love. The only reason Jordan Love was sacked that one time, he just ran right into it. I don't know what he was doing. I don't know what he was doing. And look, I see Adam on the live streams, like Packers fans losing their mind on a 28-point win. Let me be clear. I'm not. Bill and I nitpicked earlier today, and everyone's like, "Just be happy with a win." It's like, well, no. First of all, this is Sports Talk Radio. What do you think this is? Do you want me to go? Do you just want me to turn the mic off? Turn the light? Hey guys, nice win. Like we have a 2-hour talk show to do. The one sequence that actually really got my goat was going into halftime. The rest of it, there wasn't anything super damning in this game. I would like to see Jordan Love get hot at some point this year. That hasn't happened yet, but that's something that I can yell about for 2 hours. That sequence going into halftime, that's something that could happen in a playoff game and could be the reason your season comes to an end. When Jordan Love gets off the rails a little bit and loses his mind, and Matt LaFleur, a coach that I love more than most, needs to realize that his quarterback is melting down a little bit and he needs to go get him. And that means taking a timeout or whatever. They had 2 timeouts. They had 2. And they were at midfield, and Jordan Love just started heaving bombs into harm's way. And then they go into halftime with 2 timeouts when they were at midfield, and they had to punt. It's just a really, really big wasted opportunity. Didn't kill him yesterday. That'll kill him in a bigger game. That's the type of thing that could end your season in a close playoff game, especially on the road against a great team. 608-321-1670. Got to get our last break of the hour, and we'll continue next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
It's the Wisco Sports Show. Got a full hour left, and I feel like we've only began to scratch the surface so far on yesterday's Packers game, and some mentions from callers about what the Badgers did at the Greenbrier, and I guess, like, Badgers football played a game too. We could talk more about that. I'd prefer not to. They suck. I don't really need to pay them any mind tonight. But if you have thoughts, more than happy to take your calls. I'll get to some texts here after 5 o'clock, 608-321-1670. I have not checked the text line yet. So 2 tweets over the break at Wisco Grant. Taylor says, I'm so glad you covered the sequence before half. Well, thank you. It was probably the thing that I was most excited to talk about. As soon as Watson dropped that ball, I nearly thought Matt LaFleur should take a timeout just to reset with Love. The middle 8, and I assume you mean 4 into halftime, 4 out of halftime in the third quarter. The middle 8, which you capitalized in this tweet, which I love, is where most games are won and lost, and yet it's so rarely talked about. Well, Packers fans, I shouldn't have to tell you. Go back and look at the blow-by-blow of any playoff loss. I feel like they've always gotten knocked in that middle window. Jay Krebs, Jordan says, you're 100% right. They need to rein him in, but I love how he's not afraid to throw any ball. If Matt is half the coach Holmgren was, Love will be fine. Here's the thing, though. Yeah, I love that Love is fearless. Occasionally, I want him to have a little fear. Like, every once in a blue moon, I want Jordan Love to be like, actually, I'm probably not going to cork this one. Just once in a blue moon. Like, we'll address this more. Let's get a 2-minute update from Zach Heilprin. We're back after this.
This is a Wisconsin Sports Zone update.
Well, the Packers did not practice today, but if they had, they would have been missing a number of key pieces due to injury because they play on Thursday against Miami. Team had to release its first injury report today. It included 5 guys that wouldn't have practiced at all, including Romeo Doubs, Jair Alexander, Isaiah McDuffie, several others, including Josh Myers and Rasheed Walker, would have been limited. The Dolphins also had a pretty lengthy injury list. Kick on Thursday is set for 7:20. Turning to Wisconsin, they're prepping for the regular season finale against Minnesota on Friday. Badgers need a win to become bowl eligible, but as soon as the game is over, the process of figuring out what's next for the program is Luke Fickell's job. That includes which players might be sticking around for another year, heading to the NFL, or even heading to the transfer portal. As it stands, Wisconsin does not have an offensive coordinator. Fickell was asked today whether that impacts his ability to build that roster.
That's the way we've always recruited. That's the way we've kind of kept these guys within the program to say, like, it's bigger than any one person. It's any bigger than anybody that is calling the plays. Now, quarterbacks, obviously, who's coaching them and things like that, to me, are really important. But to say, like, well, who's going to call plays? Well, no, what direction do you want to go? What's it going to look like? Do you have faith and belief in me?
Again, it'll be Wisconsin and Minnesota on Friday. Kick is at 11.
If you're interested in a rewarding career with a strong Wisconsin company, Rural Mutual Insurance is looking to add to their growing team of successful employees and agents. Apply online today at ruralmutual.com/career.
Well, Wisconsin's John Tonji was named the Big Ten Player of the Week for a second straight week today. He had 33 points in the Badgers' win over Pitt yesterday. UW also moved up 4 spots, number 15 in the latest AP poll. With this Wisconsin Sports Zone Network update, I'm Zach Heilprin.
Man, so you've been through plenty of Thursday night games already as a head coach, but do you stay here all night? Do you
Pretty
go?
much. Yeah. That's why I want to get done with this as soon as possible.
The fact that they knocked us out and the last time we played them, we lost. So we knew it was going to be a 4-quarter fight. It feels good to be able to go out there and have a win like this. So, we're going to move past it now, but it definitely feels good.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
All right, I want to get to some of your texts, and I want to get back to taking your calls if you have thoughts on anything that took place over the weekend, specifically Packers-Niners. That's always going to be our biggest story on Monday, but some fun conversations to be had about Badgers basketball, and if nothing else, some entertaining discussions to have about Badger football, but Packers-Niners going to be our real meat and potatoes. So 608-321-1670, open phone lines if you want to grab them. 2 or 3 minutes to address what I was just talking about right before the end of the last hour. So if you're just joining us, I was talking a little bit about that sequence going into halftime. Christian Watson drops a ball. That's tough luck. Okay. That sucks. I'm not gonna spin it. That sucked. Okay. But after that drop, the Packers have 2nd and 10 at midfield at the 49-yard line of San Francisco. If they pick up 12 or 15 more yards, they get Brandon McManus a really makeable attempt. If they get 20 more yards, feel great. Borderline chip shot. They have 2 timeouts. It's really, really doable. They're in an awesome spot. And after Christian Watson drops that pass, Jordan Love kind of melts down. And he throws a deep shot to Bo Melton that wasn't necessarily like the worst throw in the world, but not a high percentage play and not what you need on 2nd and 10, just trying to get 3 points. And then on 3rd down, he makes it worse by firing a ball into double coverage toward Christian Watson. He becomes a defender to knock it down. That's a ball that he absolutely shouldn't have thrown. My frustration is Matt LaFleur needs to rein him in that spot. He needs to know his quarterback. He's got to know this guy by now. We're a season and a half in. Jordan Love's been in the building for years. Matt LaFleur should know him well. Good head coaches need, especially offensive head coaches, play calling head coaches, need to know their quarterback's tendencies and realize if not after the 1st down, certainly after the 2nd down. Say, hey, we can have 3 points hanging in the balance here. 6 is probably off the board. Not for sure. We have 2 timeouts. Who knows? We got guys who can make plays in the open field. You hit someone on a crossing route. We saw Jaden Reed do it on New Year's Eve in Minnesota. He could take that the rest of the way. You don't know. There's points out here to be had. Stop throwing moon balls into double coverage. And Matt LaFleur, if he did anything, it wasn't enough. I don't know if he said something in Jordan Love's ear. I would guess that he didn't based on how the next 2 play calls go, unless Jordan Love is that, I guess, like tunnel visioned at times where even Matt LaFleur saying, hey, take it easy, take it easy, take it easy. And Jordan Love's like, all right. And then uncorks balls into double coverage. Like maybe Jordan Love does get that like Russell Westbrook tunnel vision where he can't be coached in those moments, but Matt LaFleur's got to find out a way. That sequence scared the daylight out of me because if that happens in US Bank or in Ford Field or in a playoff game, that can lose them a game. The rest of the game, it's like, whatever. Okay, whatever. We can nitpick little things. That's a sequence that could be a really bad, a scary harbinger of things to come. And Jay Krebs on Twitter, we were going back and forth about this, is like, well, Matt LaFleur's got to rein him in there, but I love that Jordan Love isn't afraid of any throw. It's like, but I want him to be afraid of some throws. Some of the talking points around Jordan Love from certain sects of Packers fans, I think we've started to miss the mark a little bit. Like Jordan Love is leading the league in interceptions at one point. I don't know where he stands now, but at one point he is, right? And we have all these Packers fans that like, yeah, but I just love that he's not afraid to let it rip. It's like, I would like him to be a little afraid here and there. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like, you can skydive and bungee dump and pull all sorts of stunts you want in your personal life, but at some point, it's like, okay, if you have young kids at home, like a good amount of caution is wise here and there. I know he's got 10 picks on the year, and he's just hurting the team and costing them points. But I love that he's not afraid to miss. We got to stop saying that. It's not true. We're not raising a 6-year-old here. He's a $50 million quarterback on a team that's trying to win at the highest level. Like, I just love that he's not afraid. I never want him to be coached out of that. I would like a little bit of it to be coached out of him. I would like him to wise up a little bit, just a bit. That's all. And I think some of the interception talking points have gone sideways too, just listening to a little bit of sports talk today. It's like, well, you saw a little bit of the interception luck regress yesterday for Jordan Luck, as if like all 10, or I don't even know how many picks he has this year. I guess I have his tab open in front of me. He's got 11th, right? He's near the top of the league if he's not at the top of the league. And yet so many Packers fans talk about it. It's like, well, that one off Bo Melton's hands. Okay, that's one. Sure, they're not all his fault. But you can't be the lead. You can't lead the league in interceptions and explain it away as luck. You know what I mean? That's not how it works. Like a relief pitcher couldn't be bad for the entire year and then be explained away as batted average on ball and play. Like he's just been really unlucky. Well, other than Hobie Milner, which is the joke I was setting up. He was mostly ass all year. And it's like, he's bad. It's bad luck. It's like, no, I don't think it is. I think he's just bad, which is why they non-tendered him. Like, yeah, some interceptions can be bad luck, but so many Packers talkers are like, well, bounce the ball here, bounce the ball there. But brothers in Christ, he's got 11. And he didn't throw any yesterday, but he easily could have. All right, back to your thoughts. 608-321-1670, Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Eric on I-90.
Eric on I-90, good evening, and congrats to your Vikings. I thought they were going to lose yesterday, and they didn't.
You were rooting for it.
Well, a little bit. It would be in my best interest as a Packers fan. We're trailing you guys in the division. And also, I picked the Bears to win on Bill's show, so I kind of wanted to be proven right.
Right. And so that's one of the things I had two things to cover, and then you brought up this last little bit. I'm going to stick with the show. I'm going to make it fast, okay?
Sure.
You're talking about mischaracterization of Jordan Love's interception.
A little bit.
And I agree with you. A lot of people that want to compare Jordan Love to Brett Favre. And I can guarantee you, anybody who calls in that watched Brett Favre play in his first couple of years, he don't look anything like Jordan Love.
No,
He was it was Hall of Fame play out of Brett Favre.
Jordan Love has a nice arm. You watch highlights from Brett Favre, it's like, how does a human arm throw a ball like that? Like, Jordan Love's got a talented arm and can make lots of throws. To just compare it away, it's like, well, Favre threw a lot of picks. It's like, okay, well, Favre also did a lot of other things Jordan Love isn't doing as of right now,
It ain't the same. It ain't the same. All right, so that's a quick one, all right? Secondly, the Chicago Bear fans, if you're listening out there, all right, you have the Green Bay Packers and Minnesota Vikings to thank for being able to watch your quarterback come out of his shell and let everybody see what he can do, because that guy can ball. That guy can play some ball. I just want after 2 games.
Yeah.
He can play some good ball. And there was a lot of doubt. And I believe that the Bears have hope.
Yeah, he was nasty. And it's funny, something that I brought up, and I this isn't necessarily pertinent to our audience, Eric, although we all watch football. It's not Wisconsin related, but I started to lose my mind a little bit with the Commanders. Everyone's like, well, the Bears picked the wrong guy, and Cliff Kingsbury, he was available. The whole league could have had him. Why didn't the Bears hire him for the head coach? It's like, well, we're a month in, and everyone hated Cliff Kingsbury after Arizona. And look, Jaden Daniels has regressed a little bit. Caleb's slinging it, and Cliff Kingsbury has hit a wall as a play caller. It's like, okay, so maybe we were overreacting a little bit in October. Why do people do this, Eric? It's a natural trait, right? Just a natural trend. And then my last thing, on Thursday, you see if San Francisco let go of the rope. Mm-hmm.
Remember that?
Yep. I was hoping they would.
Do you think they did that? Do you think they let go of the rope?
I think a little. I just also think they were on the road and none of their good players were available. Like, if they kept the pedal to the metal the whole game, which I don't think they did, I still don't know that the result would have been that different. You know what I mean? Like, people were talking about, well, they missed so many tackles, they gave up. It's like, well, Josh Jacobs is good, and the Niners are missing a lot of their good players. You know what I mean? He's hard to tackle. Like, it's not just that they gave up. Like, I also think the Niners in their current state just kind of stink.
And I mean, who doesn't like to see San Francisco lose? I was rooting for San Francisco, but I can't lose because I like to see San Francisco lose too. So it was everybody won this weekend, Grant. Yeah. Everybody won.
I think so. I would have preferred the Bears to win because I need it in the standings, Eric. It's not anything personal against you or your team, although I don't really like your team that much. And it would have been funny. It would have been an entertaining result for the Bears to come back and win that game. And the onside kick was kind of fun. And it was funny to watch because the noon game, and I don't know, depending on where you are in the state. No, I'm a lot closer to Chicago, and I got Vikings Bears. So if you're up in the Chippewa Valley, you would have got Vikings Bears anyways because if anyone's getting Vikings Bears, it's you guys, right? Especially with the Vikings, if you get Fox out of the cities or whatever. And it was funny watching Caleb Williams and Sam Darnold take turns standing in the pocket for 12 seconds apiece. There's just sometimes with those two guys, there's just no clock up there. Like it's a cuckoo clock that's just doing nothing in their head. It's like 6 seconds, 7 seconds, 8 seconds. They're just not moving. And eventually they're going to get hit. And the O-line's got to be like, dude, can you throw the ball? It was the same in the Rams game. Sam Darnold standing in his own end zone. And I know he got face masked, Vikings fans, and the refs missed it. But how does he have no internal clock standing back there? That's what I think of watching Darnold. It's like, dude, you got to get the ball out. And Caleb Williams, too. We knew that. That's always been the book on Caleb, right? He holds the ball a little bit too long. But it was fun. It's funny to see those two quarterbacks take turns down the stretch, just not throwing the ball. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
It's Darnell.
Hey, Darnell. What's going on?
Hey, I find it interesting, just quarterback discourse in general in college, and then the NFL is pretty insane week to week. Like for instance, Jordan Love is Brett Favre one week because he's throwing too many picks, and then the other week he's really really good quarterback that just needs a little bit of work, and he's still really young. He's only in his second year in the league, and then you have C.J. Stroud, who is a really really impressive rookie last year, and he's followed it up with a pretty good campaign, but he's also had some issues, like he lost to Titans yesterday.
Yeah.
It's kind of just going by the wayside.
Lost to the Lions at home when Jared Goff threw 5 picks.
Right.
Like I actually don't need to know what else happened in that game. Assuming everyone stayed healthy and assuming Stroud stayed healthy, like that's just a red flag to me in your number 2 for CJ Stroud.
Right. And I mean, but that's part of just being young in the NFL. And I think that gets lost on so many people. Like say, well, Trevor Lawrence was supposed to be the next coming of Jesus. He's never panned out the way that he was supposed to, except for I think one season.
Yeah.
It's interesting because you think you just got to be like, okay, we have it good. Let's not get too crazy with like the comparisons and also the expectations on some things. I know that he's the $55 million man, but he's still in his second year of quarterbacking the Packers here as a starter. And I mean, he's bound to make some mistakes. I'd still, as a Packer fan, rather him make mistakes betting on himself than make mistakes throwing the ball away. I don't know. You can make mistakes both ways, and I guess I'd rather him make mistakes trying to make something happen.
I just think, and look, Jordan Love didn't throw any picks yesterday. I'm not some caveman that thinks like you can go an entire season without throwing interceptions. They do happen. Okay, it's football. Here's the thing. You said you would rather him make mistakes betting on himself than being too cautious. It's just he's so far. Like we're not in danger, Darnell, of him making mistakes, not slinging the ball. Like if we started to trend that way a little bit, like, but that seems like such an implausible thing right now. Like I can't even fathom Jordan Love making mistakes of passivity. So if we start getting that way, maybe I would concern myself with that. But right now, it's not even on my radar.
Right, and maybe it comes from having our previous quarterback be so cautious in certain situations that it would just drive us mad.
Yes.
Right, where we've gone from one end of the spectrum to the complete opposite end of the spectrum, and we're not really sure how to react. But I am perfectly okay with the, maybe it kind of sucks not getting to see the full version of the Packers yet because for whatever reason Jordan Love still wants to take his hero shots every 5 seconds. Maybe that hurts the Packers right now, but like as we move further into the season, as we get into December, as we get into January, you'd hope that their offense just kind of rounds into form as they're probably the most healthy that they've been all year at this point, right? Yep. I mean, starting with quarterback health. And it was so nice. I have to say this, so nice to see Jordan Love be able to get out of the pocket and kind of move his legs and in the pocket being able to shift right to left. Like, really haven't seen that from him since the Cardinals game.
Yep.
So that was really nice to see. A great win against a not great opponent because of injuries and whatnot, but it's the NFL. You take your wins where you can get them, right?
And they beat them by 28. It's not like they won by 3. If they'd won by 3, we'd be having a different discussion. They won by 28 points. So I'm really not that bent out of shape about yesterday's game. They nitpick things here and there. And I'm never going to be the guy who's like, well, they won. A win is a win. Move on. Just be happy with it. Well, that you can be a fan that way. I have a 2-hour talk show to host every night. So we're going to find things to nitpick, especially for a team that had, maybe it's unfair to say Super Bowl expectations. I don't know that any of us were like Super Bowl or bust this year, but like we want to see him take a step after last year, and we want to see him play their best ball at the right time and go on a run. Like we're going to nitpick. Those teams get nitpicked. I had people in my mentions on Twitter yesterday. It's like, God, they won. Just enjoy it. It's like, well, that's not how this works, right? You are talked about and viewed differently when you're a team that's at the very worst a top 5 team in their own conference. I think the Packers right now, you could consider them the 3rd, the 4th best team. I think right now they're comfortably behind Detroit and Philly, probably Minnesota too. You could consider them on equal footing with Minnesota. They played head-to-head and the Vikings won, so that gives the Vikings, maybe I'm a caveman. I watch the games on Sunday and they matter, so the Vikings are a little bit ahead of the Packers, but you can't put them any farther back than that. There's not another team in the NFC that you could put in front of the Packers. At worst, right now, they're the 4th best team in the NFC, and I don't think they've played their best ball yet. I think they have a higher level. I'm not going to sit here and guarantee that they're going to reach that higher level. I think Jordan Love needs to reach a little bit higher level of playing. He didn't play awful yesterday. He played fine. I just start to get a little annoyed with some of the narratives and talking points around Jordan Love's picks. It's like, well, but I love that he's not fearless. It's like, well, every once in a while, I'd like him to have a little fear, though. A little fear is good. Keeps you alive, right? Keeps the ball from getting turned over. A little fear is good, right? That's not a problem. Or like the last, the way that folks explain away interceptions. People talking yesterday, because Jordan Love didn't throw a pick yesterday. And I heard people on Sports Talk today. It's like, well, there's and his luck turned, as if his 11 interceptions up until this point have all been bad bounces. Like, no, there've been bad throws. And Q, not to beat up on you, but what does this comment mean? The second half of this comment, I'll throw it up on the live stream if you're watching the simulcast. The amount of complaining people do about Love's low impact picks is ridiculous. I'd understand if they're losing. Q, and it's not just you. So many Packers fans have convinced themselves that picks don't always lead to points. Well, they do a lot, right? That pick against the Lions game, crushing. That pick against the Bears last week, crushing, because possessions were limited and they were on the doorstep of scoring. And that pick took 6 points out of their hands, 3 points at the worst, and then Chicago takes the ball, drives it down the score. So that's a 10, 14-point swing against the Rams. That's a pick 6. They completely shot a hole in the middle of the game. Q, so many Packers fans have convinced themselves, well, what's the difference between that and a punt? There's a huge difference, especially with Daniel Whalen and the way that he can flip field, right? Packers fans, Jordan Love didn't throw picks yesterday. I thought he's fine. My gripe today is a little bit more about how Jordan Love is covered and talked about, especially from like some more fan-leaning portions of Packers Twitter. It's like, we need to accurately and honestly talk about the way that he's played this year. We can't just bend reality this year to make ourselves feel better about how he's played. He's been fine. And they're 8-3, and that's an awesome spot. At worst, they're the 4th best team in the NFC right now, and they're young and they have room to grow within this season still. I think they can still play a lot better. But let's not lie and frame some of their missteps and some of their shortcomings just to make ourselves feel better. It's not honest and it's not productive. 608-321-1670. You're going to take a break. I'll get to your phone calls. More of them next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
It's the Wisco Sports Show. Appreciate you listening. Got some empty phone lines if you want to grab them. I'm going to take a couple calls this segment, if there are a couple callers. And then at 5:30, I'm going to talk for a bit. We're going to shut the phone calls down because I have something specifically that I want to address. Has to do with the wide receivers. Look, to reiterate this, it's Sports Talk Radio. We have a 2-hour show to fill. So we're going to nitpick some of the things. But the overwhelming majority of yesterday's game was great. It was fun because they stomped the Niners, and I hate the Niners. And I can kind of see this current iteration, this team falling apart, which I love. Brings me a lot of joy. But it's Sports Talk Radio, so we're not just going to sit here and play Bang That Drum and, pleasure ourselves. Like, there's little details and things that we got to pick at, especially if this team, again, if you want to turn this team on every Sunday and just get 2 hours of enjoyment and that's all right, fine. Well, then you're probably listening to me and you're like, why are you bitching so much? And I don't even think I'm bitching. I'm picking. I'm nitpicking, right? But if you want this team to be playing their best ball at the end of the year and you're hoping that they have a run in them, well, then there are things, yes, even from a 28-point win yesterday that we can look at and say that's got to be a little bit better. That's got to be addressed. This is something to monitor moving forward. And I get Q in the comments like, hey, can we be positive? I'm being positive. I'm having a great day. I'm having a blast today. Vibes are high. It's a short work week. Greg Gard and the boys are cooking. They got the longest current streak in college basketball, winning basketball. There's a lot. I'm in a great mood today. I'm fired up. I'm energetic. It's just with a 2-hour show, we're going to pick at the little things that we think are going to do a little bit better. And we've talked about Jordan Love for the last 20 minutes or so. I thought he was fine yesterday. I don't think he was bad. I thought he was fine. He's going to need to be a little bit better than we've seen him be if they have a run in him. That's always going to be my measuring stick this year. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this? Hello? All right, I'm going to put you on hold. I'll come back. Let's go to line number 2. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, what's going on? It's Adam.
Hey, Adam. What's going on? Where are you calling from, Adam?
Hey, well, I'm in the car right now, but I live in Lone Rock, so down by Spring Green area.
Hell yeah, awesome, Adam. What's going on?
Hey, I think you're somewhere, but you're above nitpicking. These are, I think they're your breakdown of the end of the first half there is perfect as far as I'm concerned, and it's you want mindsets and thought patterns, I guess, to that are going to translate, and especially when it's some stuff that's shot us in the foot before. The one other thing that stood out to me was that was probably a notch above nitpicking was the wasted time out there when they was it Jacobs that came up just about an inch shorter there, so on the goal line. Because I believe it was right after the Bear game in regards to the field goal. A direct quote from LaFleur is you can't leave things up to the officials. But he got that in need of a Pepto-Bismol look on his face and sat there and let the clock run down and hoped the officials were going to take it to review.
Yeah.
I would have rallied the troops as another chance to go smash San Francisco in the face to finish the inch off that the refs didn't want to give them.
Yeah.
And that's the mentality that that was really the only other thing that I seen that, because again, yesterday it's an extremely inconsequential timeout in January in the divisional round. There's no such thing as an inconsequential timeout.
Yeah. I think look, if people are concerned about Matt LaFleur and his timeout usage, that's fine. I don't know that an inconsequential timeout. I get less stingy with my timeouts when my team is up multiple scores, right? I would rather use those timeouts to keep myself in a good spot with a lead rather than keep them in my pocket in the chance that the game tightens up and I need them later. You know what I mean? Like, I think timeout usage and the way that you approach timeouts can change with the state of the game. I agree with you. It was that sequence going into halftime. I'm not so naive, right? I'm not saying that Matt LaFleur should have taken a timeout to calm down his quarterback, but he needed to do something because Jordan Love kind of, not to use strong language, he melted down a little bit after Watson dropped that pick, and it cost him a chance at points, which is something that can't happen in an actual meaningful game.
Right. We might need to, maybe on second down, the right call, there's a quick bubble screen or something to take the vertical route even out of play altogether there and not even give him that option. I think maybe that's where the coaching needs to grow instead of until the quarterback mindset catches up there cognitively. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. Yeah.
That's the stuff that you want those things, the minutiae, the situational footballs. That's the stuff you need to be A+ ahead of you. You can't wait to the playoffs. It's time to button that stuff up now down the home stretch 100%.
Yeah, and I'm very pleased with this win yesterday. It was 28 points. I got to go to the grocery store before it was even done. So that was nice. That was my hope for the game. I need to go to the store to get some things. I was like, I would like if this game is in garbage time in the last couple minutes. We got to pull the starters, which is nice. Get those guys a little extra rest, especially with a short week on Thursday. Look, I'm not negative about this game. Circled a couple of things. That sequence going into halftime. Look, what is Mike Holmgren iconic for? When you think of lines, when you think of moments, when you think of little video clips, when you think back to Holmgren, I think of him telling Brett, no more rocket balls, right? Like Matt LaFleur needs to find, I think that's what made Holmgren brilliant as a coach. And right now, I think that's what makes Andy Reid brilliant as a coach. Reid has been good at things for a long time. But what Holmgren did was set up an apparatus or a scheme or whatever, set up an offense around Favre that was structured to a point, but also set up in a way where Brett didn't feel like he was in binding. Holmgren built a structure and he built a scheme, but it was set up around Favre in a way where Favre kind of got to discover and Favre kind of got to feel like he was the one making decisions. And it was the perfect mix of how Favre wanted to play, which is loose and run and gun, but also like we need the right amount of structure and we need some guardrails. Holmgren struck that balance in the 90s. And that's what I think that's what defined his ability to win with Favre and to win with that team. And I think Reid has kind of done a similar thing about Mahomes. Mahomes' interception and turnover avoidance in playoff games is much better than Favre, but he does still play in a way that's a little looser and faster. I think Reid set up the perfect thing around him. Matt LaFleur needs to find that with Jordan Love, and that's a lot easier said than done, right? I think Matt LaFleur at this point has got a pretty good idea of how Jordan Love operates. We've got a season and a half, a little more than a season and a half, and he's known him for longer than that. He's been in the building now. This is his 5th year with the Packers, right? 3 years on the bench, 1 starting last year, and then this is year number 5. He needs to find his version of no more rocket balls. It's like, hey, man, big plays are great. We don't really need one of those right now. And we certainly don't need one of those right now at the risk of giving up a smaller play when we need 12 yards with 2 timeouts before half to attempt a field goal, especially in a close playoff game. It wasn't really close yesterday. The timeout usage on the goal line, I don't know. I saw some people get mad about that on Twitter. I'm like, look, of all things, if you got beef with Matt LaFleur, that's fine. If you think he uses timeouts a little bit more loosely, I can tell you, Luke Fickell could have used a timeout on special teams on Saturday. You know what I mean? That was the most jarring thing. That's when I kind of stopped watching. It's like Fickell's got a real lack of command with that team right now. They didn't really know seemingly if they wanted to kick or go for it. And then they ran Vakos out there and Fickell said after the game, it's like, well, we maybe wanted to fake it. Maybe just a real lack of intention and a real lack of command in that situation. And I I don't know if it was lack of command that LaFleur had taking that timeout. I think he realized that they were up a couple scores, and it's better for them to stay ahead of the sticks instead of disadvantaging themselves, keeping timeouts in their pocket that if the rest of the game goes according to plan, they're not even going to need because they're up multiple scores. So I don't know. I'm a little less critical of timeout usage. I know that gets up some people's butts. Sorry, it doesn't get up mine. There's lots of other things that get up my butt. I want to talk about wide receiver usage and target distribution coming up next because I saw something that was brought up a lot on the live stream of Bill's show earlier today. I actually got a text from a listener, Chris in Cadott, which is funny that you listen in Cadott, given it's a little bit of a punching bag of the show, about wide receiver usage. So I want to talk about that. That's something that I had on my list, and that's perfect. We can do that next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
It's the Wisco Sports Show. My name is Grant Bills. Happy Monday, and especially happy Monday this week because we only have to do this 2 more times. The vibes at your office place, if they're anything like mine, is just so high today because we all show up to work and we're like, yeah, we're at work today and we're beginning a new work week, but does this one really count? And if my boss is listening, my God, pedal to the metal. I'm doing fine work this week. I'm just only doing it for 2.5 days. That's it. Not a big deal. The Monday mailbag in about 10 minutes here at 5:50. So you can submit your questions, sports related or not. It's probably better for content if they are not sports related, but sports questions are fine too. GrantBills21 at gmail.com. I make you email them in because it's a little bit of a hoop to jump through and you actually have to want to do it. You can't just send some troll thing in the text line, and it keeps all the questions in one place. All right, I want to address something that Kristen Kadott asked about, but first, one caller on hold. This will be the last caller of the show. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Ridge Runner Mark, how are we doing?
Ridge Runner Mark, good evening. I'm well. How are you?
Good. So, final minutes of the half, the Packers sequence of 3 plays. I kind of lean a little bit more towards that was Matt LaFleur not giving up on, I need a splash play. Because I'd like to think that Love has it in him to say, okay, the long shot isn't there, I'll dump it underneath. And I don't know that any of those plays had that option. If they were all farther than 10 yards, they weren't trying to get a first down, they were trying to get chunk plays. And so Love was a little handcuffed in what he could do, which maybe led to him holding the ball longer. However that worked, I kind of think it was more so LaFleur, getting a little too much. No, I'm going to make this happen and forcing it. As much as you kind of say Love was trying to force it, I think it's the play calling as much as anything else.
You think Matt LaFleur was dialing him up there? That's interesting. And obviously, I have to go back and check the All-22, which I say not seriously. I'm not going to do that. But it would be interesting to go back and look at those 3 plays because I think that sequence is, if there's one thing that we can take away from this game and stick in the back of our mind and circle back to in big, close games against good teams and possibly in the playoffs, I think it's that sequence. I think that's the most significant sequence of this whole game.
That was the most frustrating part of that entire game. It really was. I don't even care about the Kittle touchdown, although you can complain, how would you let a tight end get behind you in an end zone, especially the caliber of Kittle?
Yeah, I mean, Quay and Evan Williams just didn't pass it off quickly. The Niners had one drive. Look, if you want to nitpick that one drive, fine.
Sure.
But if you would have told me coming into this game they're going to give up 10 points and win by 28, I said, great. That's fine.
Exactly.
Perfect.
Yeah. And they just really that was so frustrating in that you had 2 timeouts. 3 points is better than no points.
Yeah.
You don't get Christian Watson. Okay, we reset. Let's just get another first down and see what we get.
Yep.
And they had time and timeouts to do that, and they just didn't.
If it wasn't, that's a great call. Thank you, Ridge Runner Mark. If it wasn't Jordan Love, then it was Matt LaFleur, whoever it was who was the driving force behind taking 2 more shot plays after the missed Watson catch. To me, that's throwing good money after bad. You had your shot and you missed it. That sucks. But you're still up and you still have an opportunity to get more points. You got to pivot, right? You can't keep trying to jam the thing. It's not, you had a shot, you missed it. It's frustrating, whatever. You're still at midfield with a chance to really operate at a high kind of situational level and get 3 more points going into halftime and run the rest of the clock out. So you don't have to kick the ball to Deebo Samuel or you don't have to worry, anything like that. The kid will play in the end zone. Okay, whatever. They scored 1 touchdown. Quay Walker and Evan Williams took a little bit too long to pass the assignment off. Whatever. Learn from it. Yeah, it's a bad look to lose the one guy they have healthy. They gave up 10 points with essentially one sustained drive. So I'm not going to lose sleep over it. You can nitpick it. It's fine. I'm nitpicking other things. I'm just choosing what I want to nitpick today. I get a text from Chris and Kadot before 5 o'clock, and I've been sitting on this, Chris. Sorry. He says, and it's funny. Thank you for listening, in Kadot. He says, longtime listener, first-time texter, go Pack Go. I'm curious about Jaden Reed's utilization in this offense in its current iteration. He had an incredible first game this year. Has been pretty quiet the rest of the way from a scheme standpoint. A microcosm of that logic has played out the last 2 weeks. First drive of both games, he's targeted by Love with positive results, then crickets the rest of the way. Would you care to elaborate on your thoughts on this? Love the show. Keep it up. Thank you, Chris. So, Chris, it's funny. I wrote this down during Bill's show earlier today because we had people on the live stream, and maybe I should stop watching the live stream, but it gives me content, I guess, if nothing else. We had people on the live stream. It's like, why doesn't Jaden Reed get more targets? And then other people were like, why isn't Tucker Kraft getting more targets? Right? In the last couple of weeks, it's like, why isn't Christian Watson getting more targets? And Romeo Doubs is just kind of there. I don't know that anyone's ever said that about Romeo Doubs except for himself, and he got his ass suspended and sent home. I just don't think we could do this every week. Because we could, my point is, we could do this every week, which is why we can't do this every week, right? Somebody's not going to eat each week. Because this offense in its best iteration, this team in its best iteration, is a run-the-ball first offense with Jordan Love filling in the cracks. This is a run-the-ball defensive team right now with the way that Jordan Love is playing and the way that these wide receivers are playing, with the way the whole thing's working. And that's not to say that Jordan Love has been bad, but their identity has been Josh Jacobs as the tip of the spear for Matt LaFleur's running game. That sets up everything else. I don't know that there's going to be a lot of games, folks, where Jordan Love is attempting 30 passes. The only game this year that he's attempted more than 33, I guess he attempted 54 against Minnesota. Holy balls, but they were trailing, right? You just couldn't run the ball in that game. So he has 34 attempts against Philly. That was a loss. 54 attempts against Minnesota. That was a loss. 26 in LA, win. 32 against Arizona, win. 33 against Houston, which shocks me because it felt like they were going 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. Maybe that's why they were going 3 and out, as they kept throwing the ball. 22 throws against Jacksonville. We got hurt. Let's throw that out. 39 against Detroit. They were trailing, so that makes sense. 17 in Chicago, 23 in San Francisco. I bet that Matt LaFleur would love to keep him no higher than 33, 34 throws a game. And the best case scenario, like yesterday's game, especially if you're in the lead, which is ideal, 25 attempts or less. Probably great. The most completions that Jordan Love has in a game this year is 24. 32, actually. That was against Minnesota. And again, they were trailing. That was kind of an outlier game. He has 17, 32, 15, 22, 24, 14, 23, 13, 13. Eyeballing an average, that seems like, 19 completions a game, 18 completions a game if you take out Minnesota, which I know is unfair, but that's the outlier game. Okay. He's just not throwing and attempting that many passes. So, Chris, to your point, you're like, well, why isn't Jaden Reed getting more targets? Or why didn't he get more targets yesterday? Well, Jordan Love only had 13 completions, and 3 of them went to Jaden Reed. So actually, when you curve his performance and involvement on the grade, which you should do, he was actually pretty darn involved yesterday. Romeo Doubs had 3 catches, Tucker Kraft had 2, Jaden Reed had 3. Those were your leading receivers. Heath had 2, Wicks had 1, Chris Brooks and John Fitzpatrick each had 1 too. We knew that this was the scenario coming into the year. We knew that the ball was going to be spread around and it's going to be someone different every week. And that's played out. The problem is when it's Tucker Kraft one week, all Packers fans are like, why not Jaden Reed? And then when it's Jaden Reed, it's like, well, where's Romeo Doubs? And then once a month, it's like, Christian Watson should be wide receiver 1. Why do not scheme for him? It's like we're playing whack-a-mole. The point of the Packers offense is it is whack-a-mole. It's somebody different every week. We, of all people, should know that. So I understand. I'd love to get Jaden Reed more involved. I'd love to get everyone more involved. But this team, when they're at their best, means that Jordan Love's throwing about 20 times, maybe a couple more, or about 20 completions, maybe a little less, maybe 25, 26 attempts because they're a run-first team. There's just not a lot of targets and catches to go around, especially if guys are dropping balls. It's like, man, you drop a ball, that's probably a third of your workload at best today that you just let slip through your fingers, literally. So not to beat up on your text, Chris, I see it from A lot of Packers fans. It's like, why not this guy this week? Well, they have 7 guys, and we know that. And they're a run first team. And like last week, it's like, well, if both teams are running the ball and possessing it, then good. You know, you might get 12 completions. What did Jordan Love have last week in Chicago? Yeah, 17 attempts, 13 completions. Same as yesterday, 13 completions. There's just not that much to go around, especially when you have 6 or 7 guys, and we know that. Again, let's take a final break. We'll do the Monday mailbag next. Send me your questions, grantbills21@gmail.com. We'll wrap up the show with that next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Because the mail never stops. Charles, we'll be writing to you.
Ah, She's Got Mail. That's the name of the movie.
That's it, honey. There's never a let-up. It's relentless. Every day it piles up more and more and more. And you got to get it up. And the more you get out, the more it keeps coming in.
The Monday mailbag. Send your questions. GrantBills21@gmail.com. Grant, why can't I just text them in? Why can't I just tweet them in? Because then every Joe Blow with any random answer this question, just email it, because then they're all in the same place. Make you go through one hoop. GrantBills21@gmail.com. Quiet week. And maybe that's on me. Maybe I don't remind you. Maybe I don't promote it enough. I have one email, but we also have 9 minutes left in the show. So if you want to bang one out really quick, you can. GrantBills21@gmail.com. The only email that I have, and I'm glad that I got this email because this is something that is kind of floating around in my head, but I wasn't going to build into a specific segment of the show. It's from Matt, who's in Eau Claire, I assume. I don't know where in Eau Claire. somewhere in the Eau Claire, listening on WAYY up in the Chippewa Valley. It says, Grant, consequential game on Saturday between Ohio State and Indiana. What were your thoughts on that matchup? Thank you, Matt. I'm glad this is almost a little too perfect that you asked this. Is it wrong that I was cheering for Ohio State? And is it wrong that I wanted Ohio State to kind of bash their skulls in? I am genuinely asking because I don't know. There's a lot of games, or it's the NFL or college football. I turn the game on. I'm like, I don't really actually know who I'm pulling for. Earlier this year was the same with Ohio State and Oregon. And then over the course of the game, I'm like, I think I want to see Oregon win. I think that's more interesting. I kind of figured when I turned on Ohio State, Indiana on Saturday, which, by the way, Big Noon, how great is that we had a great game right away to watch? Anybody who complains about Big Noon kickoff is a whiny baby, respectfully. I didn't really know. I kind of figured I would be pulling for Ohio State. Indiana and Kurt Signetti, there's nothing wrong with them. I just get a vibe where it's like, okay, you guys. So Signetti, you roll in, you're like, I win. Everyone, what do you mean? Why is anyone surprised? It's like, well, Indiana's pretty ass program historically, unless they're playing Luke Fickell's Badgers, then they win, as we saw last year. Again, one of many embarrassments on the ledger of Luke Fickell currently. Kurt Signetti's like, why is anyone surprised? I show up, I win. It's what I do. It's like, okay, well, a little smack talk. There's nothing wrong with that, I guess. They were 10-0 coming into this game, talking a big game, and their wins were against, and I have to remind myself of this, by the way. Maybe the audience is like, Grant, we know, we follow college football closely. Okay, well, not as closely for me. Florida International, Western Illinois, UCLA, Charlotte, Maryland, Northwestern, Nebraska, who I can't throw shade because my team got absolutely embarrassed by Nebraska on Saturday, Washington, Michigan State, Michigan. You're like, well, Michigan sucks this year. And yeah, they kind of do, and Indiana still beat them 20-15. Not exactly lights out. So, I don't know. It's not that I want to see plucky Indiana left on the outside. It's nothing against them. I don't know that I like him. I don't know that I like Kurt Signetti. And I don't even know that it's a place of jealousy. I don't think that's what it is. I don't know. I just don't like him. I don't like how they talk. I don't like anything about him. And they all got bent out of shape that Ohio State's quarterback did a cigarette celebration. Like, you guys have played one team and you got beat. And I think the way that Indiana played in the second half, they were just trying to run out the clock so the score didn't look worse, which I think is so lame. I don't know. A couple new emails. Thank you guys for humoring me. Vagabond John says, what's the best Black Ops 6 setup for a player on day one? My favorite gun so far? I like them all. Look, it's all about the attachments. Any gun sucks without any attachments, and most guns are pretty good with attachments. Yeah. I don't know. I prefer ARs. SMGs used to do damage worthwhile, and now it feels like you're using a squirt gun. But again, you put some attachments on it, they're fine. My favorite gun, I like the Ames. I wish it did a little more damage. I maxed out the AK and then went to the Ames, and the damage drop-off is kind of significant, but the Ames shoots really nice. It's clean. Cone, what are your top 3 Thanksgiving side dishes? Oh, God. Mashed potatoes, gravy, stuffing. Boring, but look, you listen to another radio show. I'm sure they'll spend all of Wednesday's show on it. Rob in Stoddard says, Grant, which do you think happened more recently, a Bears winning streak or us talking about the Brewers? What is your go-to beer for tailgating? Probably us talking about the Brewers. Go-to beer for tailgating? Interesting. Liney's Light, if I can get it, probably would be my answer. All beer's good. All beer is delicious. There's some beers I like more than others. Liney's Light. I love Line and Kugels, and Summer Shandy are good. I'm not saying that Summer Shandy is bad. Summer Shandy is thought of, or it's marketed as, for right or for wrong, this crisp, refreshing summertime beer. And it tastes good, but it's heavy, man. Like if I'm out on the boat and I'm in the sun and I'm sweating, a Summer Shandy is kind of like that'll sit in my tummy. I like light beer. So Liney's Light will be my answer. Because when you're out in the lots, I can't be weighed down with heavy beer in my gut. Give me a delicious ice cold Liney's Light. That's what I would take. Mike says, your deer camp locations look like you had a good response. Anyone share any good hunting stories too? Oh, Coyote Mike. No hunting stories. If you missed this, by the way, I had a lot of fun with this on Saturday morning. I tweeted out, you might remember this on Friday, where's your deer camp? Please reply, and I'll put it on a map. And I did. I was surprised. I'll tell you what, and maybe it's just that the folks who follow me on Twitter, the people who listen to the show, I don't know. It's probably not a perfectly good data set. I got 76 unique replies. There were repeats in DeSoto, New Lisbon, and Hayward, which is interesting. Hayward didn't surprise me. I was surprised with all the people hunting around like DeSoto, Prairie du Chien. It's not a corner of the state where I often think people are hunting all the time. Ferryville, the southwest corner of the state is just very often forgotten. So that was cool. That area was well represented. West Salem, Holman, that didn't surprise me. A lot of people hunting up towards Pembine. That was cool. One in Iron River, two in Iron River, I believe. Sean O'Connell and others up there. And Grantsburg up there. That's a corner of the state we never talk about. The part of the state that's west of 53 and north of 94. So Menominee up to Spooner and everything to the left. So Siren, Webster, St. Croix Falls. It's a forgotten portion of the state, the nose of the state. We don't often talk about that part of the state. So it's nice to get some representation there as well. And if you missed that map, I posted on the show's Facebook page and on Twitter at Wisco Grant. You just got to scroll back to Saturday morning to find it because that's when I made it. I would have liked to make it interactive. So like if you click on a pin, the name of the city shows up. But also it's kind of fun. Like you got to look at the pins and try to figure out what the city is. And I tweeted the list of names too. I like having fun with maps. I think maps are good. I think you have something correct in your brain if you get satisfaction and fun out of playing with maps. Tomorrow night, loaded show. 2 mics. Mike Renner, 4:35. Mike Clemens, 5:35. We'll get the latest on the Niners game, but probably tomorrow night. I mean, we're turning the page. We're on to Miami. I would imagine from Clemens, at least from the stories that he's going to tell us and what he's going to bring us from Green Bay. I don't know what we'll talk about with Mike Renner. Packers in general, probably a little bit of the Niners. Probably we don't talk to him as often as Clemens, so probably a little bit more big picture. Talk about some of the Thanksgiving games as well. Enjoy your evening tonight. Enjoy Monday Night Football, the Harbaugh Bowl. I'm actually really excited for this one. Talk to you tomorrow at 4. Thanks for listening. Always.